The glaciers in our national parks are shrinking. According to a study done by the USGS in Glacier National Park, some glaciers have reduced in size by as much as 85%. According to the National Park Service, the number of glaciers in Olympic National Park has dropped from 266 to 184 just since 1982. You can see here in this photo of Mount Olympus, the Blue Glacier has reduced greatly in size just in the last 100 years. In addition to the shrinking of glaciers, we're seeing a reduction in the propagation of Joshua trees in Joshua Tree National Park and a significant loss of streams and springs vital to the ecosystems in Grand Canyon National Park. We're seeing increases in pollutants high in mountain ponds and lakes like mercury. We're seeing changes in the ecosystem that are causing disease, fierce competition for food, migration of animals to new areas, and an influx of invasive species. Animals like the pika rely on snowpack for insulation during the winter months. As the snowpack is reducing and traveling upward, the pika are following. Eventually, they won't be able to go any higher. In 2010, the National Park Service conducted a study called Pikas in Peril. According to this study, the pika population in Crater Lake National Park is estimated to drop to less than 50% of its current population due to declining snowpack. Decreases in water supply to the lowlands also means an increase in wildfires. Climate change is impacting our landscape and the creatures that live in it. In short, these dramatic changes are due to human-driven climate change. As protected areas, our national parks and the glaciers within their boundaries are excellent indicators of the direction that the climate is going. According to the USGS, annual snowpack has greatly decreased since 1900, and Rocky Mountain National Park has decreased 20% just since 1980. The mean annual temperature in our parks has increased by 1.33 degrees Celsius, which is 1.8 times the global average. Glaciers grow or shrink in response to annual snowfall and melt, and they're therefore great indicators of the change in climate. Glaciers are essentially reservoirs that provide necessary cool water to the lower areas that maintain ecosystems. Ponds and streams where insects grow, which are food sources for birds and fish, spawning grounds for salmon, which are food sources for larger birds of prey like the bald eagle and other mammals like the red fox. In addition to their aesthetic beauty, they also provide drinking water for communities, water for agriculture and recreation, and therefore directly affect the cultural livelihood. The forests in our national parks are protected by the Wilderness Act, and they help reabsorb carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, a greenhouse gas which is directly responsible for the increase in atmospheric temperature. These areas are changing rapidly and drastically, and they need active support for their protection. The Wilderness Act of 1966 was a start, but it wasn't taking into account the climate change. Recent proposals proposed to cut the budget for the Department of the Interior by 12% and for the EPA by 30%, which is responsible for enforcing laws like the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act, and therefore further threaten these natural areas. The national parks play a large role in fighting climate change. Because they're protected natural areas, they act as reliable labs for scientists to study and help make informed decisions about the changing climate. Park managers have helped keep detailed records over the last century, which are helping us to track these changes. In addition, national parks also help educate the public on climate change and how it is affecting the places that we care about. The national parks are a way to preserve some of our most treasured natural wonders for future generations to experience and to appreciate. So what can we do? According to the NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council, one of the best ways to help combat these negative effects is to speak up. Tell your friends and your family about the threats to these areas. Utilize social media. Make people aware of the cuts in funding to the government programs that help us preserve these areas. National parks have done their part by using solar and wind energy and organizing mass transit transit in heavily used areas. They're also investing in hybrid and electric vehicles for official use. For yourself, we can look to renewable energy sources for our homes. We can be aware of water waste, unplug unused appliances, and invest in energy-efficient appliances. We can also weatherize our homes better. Nearly half of all home energy use goes to heating and air conditioning. Take a look at your energy bill. Many utility companies will list ways that you can save energy in your home. Also, vote in favor of funding departments of the Interior and the EPA and others. It's clear that the climate is changing and having a direct effect on the landscape and the ecosystems of our national parks. Glacial recession, increasing wildfires, increasing temperatures, the decline of species, and measurable increase in pollutants are all testament to the adverse effects of this change. Politics aside, the Earth is constantly changing and going through cycles. But we have to ask ourselves, are we having a positive impact on the environment and changing it for the better? And I think the evidence points towards the contrary. We need to look at the negative effects our planet is undergoing, and we need to look at what steps we can do to mitigate the progression of climate change. We need to help preserve and protect the natural areas for future generations to appreciate and to enjoy.